Welcome back to the deep dive. We are shifting gears today. Usually we take a wide-angle lens on a subject, philosophy, history, big tech trends. But today we are zooming all the way in.
All the way.
We are getting tactical. We've built a roadmap.
And this isn't some metaphorical roadmap. This is a literal 4-year strategic plan. We're talking to that high school freshman, or maybe their parent, who looks at a drone and sees something more than just a toy.
Right, more than a buzzer to annoy the neighbors with.
They see a career.
Right, because the days of, I bought a drone at Best Buy and now I'm a professional, those are fading fast. If you want to do this for real, you have to treat it like a trade.
Exactly. This is a federal aviation career now.
Yeah.
It's actually closer to becoming a commercial airline pilot than it is to playing a video game.
So here's the setup for today. We have pulled together a massive stack of sources to basically act as career counselors. We've got the official FAA Part 107 regulations. We have actual question banks from the pilot exam, industry reports from the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, the AOPA, and guidelines from the FAA's Youth Drone Initiative.
And our mission really is to synthesize all of that into a timeline. You start as a freshman. You know absolutely nothing. Maybe you've never even touched a control.
Total novice.
And you graduate as a senior with a federal pilot certificate, a portfolio of work, and maybe even a job offer.
That sounds ambitious for a teenager. And we're talking about federal law here. Can a 14-year-old actually parse this stuff?
They can, and they have to. If you look at the growth of the industry, agriculture, construction, inspections, the demand is there. The bottleneck is qualified people who understand the system, not just the joystick.
Okay, let's get into it. We're breaking this down chronologically. So phase 1, freshman year, you're 14 or 15 years old. What's the headline for this phase?
The headline is Exploration and Safety Culture.
Yeah.
And I want to really emphasize that second part.
Safety culture.
Yeah. Freshman year is not about getting licensed yet. It is about learning how not to be dangerous.
The sources suggest starting with what they call the toy phase. Now, to a teenager, toy sounds like an insult. They want the big, expensive gear.
Of course.
But you're saying starting small is actually a strategic advantage.
It is a massive strategic advantage. In the federal regulations, specifically the rules on operations over people, there's a magic number, 0.55 pounds.
Or 250 grams.
Or 250 grams, correct. The FAA categorizes aircraft based on the risk they pose if they fall out of the sky. A drone under that weight is considered Category 1.
So it's so light that it probably won't cause a serious injury.
Generally speaking, yes. Provided, and this is a key part of the regulation, it cannot have exposed rotating parts that could lacerate skin.
So propeller guards are a must.
Mandatory if you want to stay in that safe category. But here's the strategy for the freshman. You buy a mini drone, something under that weight limit. The regulatory burden is almost zero. You don't need to register it for recreational flight. You can fly it in more places. You're lowering the stakes.
Exactly. If you crash a $30 mini drone, you break a piece of plastic. If you crash a $5,000 cinema rig, you are looking at liability, insurance claims, maybe a visit from the FAA.
Get your crash count out of the way on the cheap hardware.
That's the idea.
Now, even though it's a toy, you still have to follow the law. I saw something in the notes about the trust test. Is this something a freshman actually has to take?
Yes. And this is a massive misconception, that if it's under 250 grams, there are no rules. That is false. Everyone, even recreational flyers, must pass the recreational UAS safety test. Trust.
Is this a hard test? Are we talking SATs here?
No. It's designed to be educational. You can take it online for free through providers like the Boy Scouts or various aviation colleges. It basically just ensures the basics.
Don't fly near airports. Don't fly too high.
Keep it in sight.
Yeah.
But passing it gives you a certificate. For a freshman, that is the first piece of paper in your portfolio. It proves you're taking this seriously. Let's talk about skills. What is the freshman actually practicing in the backyard? Because I assume it's more than just doing backflips.
They are mastering one specific concept, VLOS.
Visual line of sight. I see this acronym everywhere in the documents. It seems obvious. Just look at the drone.
It sounds obvious until you actually try to fly. The temptation, especially for the video game generation, is to just stare at the screen on the controller.
Right. The camera view.
The camera view is seductive. But the law requires you to see the aircraft with your own eyes to determine its attitude, altitude, and direction.
So you have to train your brain to know which way the drone is facing just by looking at a blinking light in the sky. 200 feet away.
Exactly. It's called orientation. If the nose is facing you and you push the stick right, the drone moves to your left. It's reversed. Freshman year is about building that muscle memory so that reversal becomes instinct.
If you have to think about it, you've already crashed.
You've already crashed.
There's also a psychological component here. The exam question banks, they talk a lot about hazardous attitudes. This feels like a therapy session.
Well, aviation psychology is a huge part of the curriculum. The FAA has identified 5 specific attitudes that kill pilots. And for teenagers, 2 of them are just critical.
Which are?
Impulsivity and machismo.
Machismo. Watch this!
That's it. I can do it. I don't need the manual. The FAA teaches that the antidote to machismo is the mantra, taking chances is foolish.
And impulsivity.
Do it quickly. The antidote is, not so fast. Think first. Freshman year is the time to stamp out those impulses. If your friends are yelling, go higher, the pilot inside you needs to say, negative. That is safety culture.
Before we leave freshman year, there's one resource mentioned, the Youth Drone Initiative.
Yes. Do not fly alone. The FAA launched this initiative for ages 11 to 18 to connect schools and clubs. If you are a parent listening, find a local chapter. It connects your kid to a workforce pathway.
Okay, so they stop being a kid with a toy and become part of a junior aviation community.
Exactly.
Okay, freshman year's in the books. You have your mini drone, you've passed the trust test, you haven't taken out a neighbor's window. Phase 2, sophomore year.
The theme here is the knowledge grind. You are 15, turning 16.
This is where the fun stops and the studying begins.
In a way, this is ground school. You are preparing for the UAG exam, the Unmanned Aircraft General. And I have to be clear, you cannot fake this test.
I was looking at the sample questions in our source stack. I consider myself a reasonably smart person, but some of these stumped me completely. Characteristics of a moist, unstable air mass.
Welcome to meteorology.
Why does a drone pilot need to know about unstable air masses? We aren't flying 747s across the Atlantic.
No, but you are flying in the same atmosphere. A moist, unstable air mass means cumulus clouds, showery precipitation, and, most importantly, turbulence.
Ah.
And if you're flying a drone, turbulence drains your battery faster because the motors are fighting to stabilize. It affects your control link.
So it's about predicting performance.
It's about risk management. Conversely, stable air usually means smooth flying, but it can also mean stratiform clouds and fog, which kills your visibility. You need to be able to look at the sky, look at a weather report, and say, no go.
The other topic that seems to trip everyone up is airspace. The alphabet soup? Class B, Class C, Class D?
It is the hardest part of the exam. Think of the sky as a layer cake or an upside-down wedding cake.
The study guide uses the example of Savannah, Georgia, to explain this wedding cake concept. Walk us through that, because to me the sky just looks like, well, sky.
Okay, so Savannah has a Class C airport. Picture a cylinder of airspace right over the airport from the ground up to 4,000 feet.
Okay.
That's the inner core. You cannot fly there without permission.
Got it.
But then there's an outer ring, a shelf. This starts at, say, 1,200 feet in the air and goes up. Underneath that shelf, from the ground to 1,199 feet, you might be in uncontrolled airspace.
You can fly there.
You can. But if you go too high, you hit the floor of that Class C shelf and you've just violated federal airspace.
That requires 3D thinking. You have to know exactly where you are standing on the map. But how do you see that map?
You have to know how to read a sectional chart. These are the maps pilots use. They don't look like Google Maps. They're covered in blue and magenta lines, numbers, symbols.
So sophomore year is basically just spending hours staring at these charts until they make sense.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You need to know that a solid blue line means Class B, and a solid magenta line means Class C. It's like learning a new language.
It is a new language.
It's the language of the National Airspace System.
There's also a legal distinction that a sophomore needs to understand, right? The difference between what the feds say and what the city says. We have an FAA fact sheet here on state and local regulation.
This is the concept of preemption. It's vital. The FAA has exclusive sovereignty over the airspace.
Meaning?
Meaning, a city mayor cannot just say, I am banning all drones from the air over my town. They don't own the air.
But we see no drone signs in parks all the time. Are those fake?
Not exactly. This is the nuance. A city can regulate land use. They can say, you cannot stand on the grass in this park and launch a drone.
Okay.
But if you launch from your private backyard and fly over the park while maintaining line of sight and following all the FAA rules, the city technically cannot stop you.
That feels like a loophole that could get a teenager in trouble with a police officer.
It absolutely can.
Yeah.
That's why the sophomore needs to understand the law. Not to be a jerk, but to know their rights and limits. You need to know where you can legally practice.
One last thing for the sophomore year grind. Physiology. This is the don't drink and fly lecture.
It's more than a lecture. The regulations are strict. 0.04% blood alcohol content is the limit, but the real rule is 8 hours from bottle to throttle.
And the sources mention that a conviction for a drug or alcohol offense can mean a 1-year denial of your license application.
Imagine being 17, you get busted at a party, and now you can't get your pilot's license until you're 19 or 20. You've just derailed your own career timeline. The FAA takes judgment very, very seriously.
Okay, you've put in the work. You've studied the weather, the maps, the laws. Now we hit the big milestone. Phase 3, junior year. You turn 16.
The magic number. You are now eligible to take the Part 107 exam.
Walk us through the actual workflow. It's not just showing up at a DMV, right?
No, it's a federal process. First, you go to IACRA, that's the Integrated Airman Certification and Rating Application. You create a profile, and you get an FTN.
An FTN.
An FAA tracking number. It sounds permanent because it is. That number stays with you for your entire aviation career. Then you schedule the test at a proctored center. Costs about $175.
And the test itself?
It's 60 questions, 2 hours. You need a 70% to pass.
Let's say our junior passes. They ace the weather section. What's next?
They apply for the certificate in IACRA. And then, this is the part people forget, they undergo a TSA security background check.
The TSA, like
Yeah.
at the airport.
Yes. You are applying to be an airman in the National Airspace System. They check you against terror watch lists, criminal databases. Once that clears, you get a temporary certificate to print out, and eventually the hard plastic card comes in the mail.
You have the card. You are officially a remote pilot. Now the gear changes. We're leaving the toy phase.
Correct. Junior year is about leveling up. You graduate to a drone that's between 0.55 and 55 pounds, maybe a Mavic 3 or a similar prosumer rig.
Which means you have to register it.
Under Part 48, yes. And you need to understand remote ID. This is basically the digital license plate. The drone broadcasts a signal that says, here I am, and here's where my pilot is standing.
And anyone with an app can see that now, right? Police, definitely.
Exactly. Accountability is now baked into the hardware.
Junior year is also about specialization. Now that you have the license, you can do things recreational flyers can't. Let's talk about night operations.
This changed recently. It used to require a special waiver. Now, under Part 107, you can fly at night if you've completed the training and your drone has anti-collision lights.
Not just the little blinking LEDs on the arms.
No. The regulation says they must be visible for 3 statute miles and have a sufficient flash rate to avoid collision. You usually have to buy an aftermarket strobe and stick it on top.
If you don't have that strobe, you are grounded at sunset.
You're grounded.
What about flying over people? This is the holy grail for anyone who wants to film sports or concerts.
This is complex, and it's really a physics problem.
Yeah.
The FAA has tiered categories 1, 2, 3, and 4. We talked about category 1, the tiny drones.
Right.
Categories 2 and 3 depend on kinetic energy transfer.
Which is a fancy way of saying how hard does it hit?
Correct. Category 2 cannot transfer more than 11 foot-pounds of kinetic energy upon impact. Category 3 allows up to 25 foot-pounds.
How on earth does a 16-year-old calculate 11 foot-pounds of energy?
You generally don't calculate it yourself. You look for a declaration of compliance from the manufacturer. But as a pilot, you need to know. If I fly this heavy drone over that crowd, am I in Category 2 or 3? Because Category 3, for instance, doesn't allow flight over open-air assemblies unless everyone is on notice.
So if you just buzz a football stadium with a heavy drone, you're likely breaking the law on multiple counts.
Multiple. And it's dangerous. Junior year is about learning these nuances so you can actually deliver value like filming the football team practice legally without getting the school sued.
That brings us to the finish line. Phase 4, senior year. You are 17 or 18. You have the license, the gear, the skills. Now you need a job.
This is the portfolio and career launch phase. Stop practicing and start working.
The sources give some great examples of real-world applications that aren't just taking pretty pictures.
Oh, yeah. Agriculture is huge. The example in the exam bank mentions operating in the Devil's Lake West MOA to inspect crops. An 18-year-old with a multispectral camera can fly over a cornfield and tell the farmer exactly which rows are dehydrated or diseased.
That is high-value data.
It really is. Or construction.
Yeah.
Inspecting a tower. We saw the example of the tower near Jamestown Regional Airport. If you can walk into a construction firm and say, I know how to get ATC authorization to fly near the airport, and I can give you a 3D model of your progress every week, you are hired.
Senior year is also about looking at the future. The roadmap suggests looking at BVLOS.
Beyond visual line of sight.
This is the frontier.
It is. Currently, you have to see the drone. But companies like Zipline and Wing are getting permission to fly miles away from the pilot for delivery.
We have reports here from the AOPA about Dallas becoming a major hub for this.
It's happening. And for a senior, you need to understand the tech behind it. For example, Zipline uses acoustic detect and avoid.
Acoustic. Like, it's listening.
Yes, it's fascinating. They have microphones arrayed on the wing of the drone. It listens for the sound of an incoming Cessna or helicopter. It's like bat sonar, but passive. It hears the traffic and automatically diverts the drone.
That sounds like science fiction.
It's reality. And you can compare that to the Kinshasa G system mentioned in the Michigan tests. That's optical cameras on the ground looking up to spot traffic.
Why does a high school senior need to know this stuff?
Because if you're applying for a job or to a college aviation program, and you can discuss the pros and cons of acoustic versus optical detect and avoid systems, you sound like an expert.
You're not just a kid who likes flying.
You're a technologist.
Speaking of college, the FAA has a specific designation to look for.
The UASCTI, the Collegiate Training Initiative. If you want to get a degree in this, find a school with that badge. We saw the University of North Dakota partnering with Vigilant Aerospace to research radar systems. I mean, that is the Ivy League of drones.
And don't forget networking. The AOPA isn't just for people with private jets.
No, they have a dedicated drone membership. They have an aviation job board. Joining a professional organization as a student just shows massive initiative.
So let's recap this 4-year roadmap. It's a heck of a journey.
It is. Freshman year, you explore with a sub-250-gram drone. You learn safety culture, stamp out machismo, and master line of sight.
Sophomore year, you hit the books.
You master sectional charts, weather patterns, and the legal limits of city versus federal rules.
Junior year.
You pass the background check, you pass the UAG exam, get your card, and you start mastering complex ops like night flying and kinetic energy limits.
And senior year, you build a portfolio solving real problems for agriculture or construction, and you deep dive into BVLOS tech to prepare for what's next.
That's the path.
It really changes the framing. It's not about flying drones, it's about managing data and airspace.
And that leads to the why. Why do all this work? Because the sky is getting crowded. The pilot of the future isn't just someone with good hand-eye coordination.
Right.
If we look where the industry is going with autonomous delivery networks and acoustic avoidance systems, the role is shifting.
It's a provocative thought to end on.
Right.
We usually think of a pilot as the person holding the stick.
But in 5 or 10 years, the pilot might be a systems manager sitting in a command center, monitoring a fleet of 10 drones that are flying themselves using microphones and radar. The question for our high school listener is, are you training to fly the toy, or are you training to manage the system?
The airspace is waiting. Thanks for diving in with us.
Fly safe.